Warning. This video will contain spoilers. For the Horus Heresy novel, The Emperor of Mankind. Greetings, Legionus. This is Arndelft. So today I'm going to be bringing you a few tidbits from The Master of Mankind by Aaron Dembski-Bowden, War in the Webway. So what I will be covering in this video is the elusive origins of the character known as the Master of Mankind, the Emperor, he who stands nameless, or what the Tenebrae Quator refer to as the anathema, or anatheme, if that's how you prefer to pronounce it. And, yeah, when I say elusive, I do very much mean elusive. This guy does not like to give up anything about his past factually. Now, one thing I'd like to go ahead and say before I actually end up getting started on this is the Emperor, of course, could be lying when he speaks about his origins and other things like that. Which, of course, for anyone who knows of his character, would not be that far out there. However, he seems to be, during these particular moments that's recorded in this novel, to be in rare moments of truth. So I get the impression that he is speaking in close to truth. Something that's an echo of it at least. Possibly the truth, but I doubt it. I honestly really do doubt what the Emperor actually speaks here is 100% the face of the truth. Now, to give a little bit of context to the passage that I'm about to read, he's currently in what I'm simply going to call a vision with his custodian, Ra. Now, for anyone who's read Aaron Dembski-Bowden's novels before, or for that matter, False Gods by Graham McNeil, he's in a vision of a similar vision where you're almost actually there. In essence, you're very much seeing what's going on, where you don't really influence what's going on unless you really push into it. I get the impression that things are extremely similar to the way it's going on in here, which, theoretically speaking, while the Emperor is enthroned on the Golden Throne, even though he's pouring all kinds of power to keep the Webway portal intact, it's also thoroughly possible that he would have the power to be able to jettison his consciousness and that of his custodies to another place in time where they could hypothetically be influencing events in a similar way to how events were influenced by, well, in the first Heretic. And I won't go into in-depth spoilers on that particular novel, but yeah, I highly suggest you read that book. It's absolutely amazing. But in any case, alright. Now, in this particular vision, the Emperor is portraying himself as a young boy and claiming, that this was him as a young man. The boy cast a slow gaze across their surroundings, across rows of tall crops around the village, where every other man, woman, and child was ignoring them as though they no longer existed. This is where I spent my youth, working the soil and bringing life from the ground. He's talking about, actually, that this is his childhood. Now, this could be taken in a few different contexts, but I'm simply going to take it in the most literal, that he's saying that this is him as a child here and claiming that. It's certainly the impression he's trying to give his custodian. Now, in the second passage here that I'd like to read to you, men had killed one another for generations before my birth, but this was the first slaying that had resonance to me, that changed my existence. It was illuminating. Now, he says, men had slain one another for generations before my birth. He doesn't say for sure that he was born there. But he does say that, it happened before his birth. In other words, he's saying that, men existed before he was born. So he doesn't, in the context that he's claiming here, he is not older than mankind is as a species. But he was created during some point during it. And he is insinuating that he was born as a regular man is. Where in other sources direct that it was something else entirely. But he also claims that the said murder, his men had killed one another for generations before my birth. What he's referring to is the death of an individual he's calling his father. Alright, so I'm going to actually continue from the first paragraph I had read, where it ended in, where he says, working the soil and bringing life from the ground. The custodian inclined his head, The custodian inclined his head, causing the servos in his collar to purr. I have given you my report, sire. Why do you keep me here? So I may illuminate you, the boy replied, speaking with a patience that bordered upon the preternatural. You watched that man die, did you not? Ra looked back over his shoulder where the villager folk were gathered around the fallen man, weeping and comforting in a loose, unwashed herd. I did. That was my uncle, my father's brother. You killed him, the custodian said without judgment. Yes, he struck my father behind with a piece of sharpened bronze, too poorly made to even be called a knife. And that leads into the second paragraph I read to you. So, with this information, he claims to have a father. Now, once again, going along the path of whether this is insinuation or whether he's being literal, but either way, this easily could be an adoptive father, or someone he simply considered to be a father. He does not say that this was the one who sired him, that this was his biological father, or anything like that. He's speaking in a way where his words can be taken in another context. He's very, very careful that way. Now, in this last little bit here, he is confronted by a direct question from Ra, who asks him whether or not this all really happened. He looked the boy in the eyes, meeting that dark and knowing gaze, and spoke with a suspicion that curled the war clan tattoos on his cheeks into a tight smile. Now listen to that. Spoke with a suspicion. Did this truly happen, sire? Were you really born here? The boy who would be king turned the skull over in his hands, his voice already distant with distraction. I shall barter with coastal traders that come at the high moon. I will use shells for my father's eyes. Now his response, of course, is lost upon anyone who hasn't read that particular passage because it's directly contexted to this vision and what's going on, and I can explain that at a later time if, people would like me to. But he avoids the question by going on with the vision itself, purposely not addressing the question that was just posed to him. No, he avoids it, allows it just to slide on by. And this is, once again, a straight line. He will not actually outright put that out there. He will not address it directly. He always leaves room for, oh, I didn't lie. The truth is this. He's very, very careful that way. That's something you've got to notice about him. Now, there is one other passage that I would like to read you about the Emperor's origins, which I think speak volumes. Now, to add some context to this scene, there is a woman who stole apparently one of the last sections of water, the last oceans of water on Terra. And she has committed many other crimes, but she is going to be executed for this crime in particular because the Emperor has decreed it. And Constantine Valdor is the one to carry out this deed. And he's having a bit of a conversation with her before he does it. But one of the things she ends up saying to him is the following. "Does he even breathe?" she demanded. "Tell me that, custodian. Have you ever heard him breathe? He is a relic left over from the Dark Age, a weapon left out of its box, now running rampant." Now think about that. She referred to the Dark Age. Mind you, she was careful not to say the Dark Age of technology. Well, possibly not careful. But indeed, she did not say the Dark Age of technology. But it could have been what she was referring to. With that in mind, there is the distinct possibility that she was referring to one or the other. Wherein, if it was the Dark Age, that would suggest that he was either created by something besides mankind and simply found them as a fledgling species, possibly was born during that time period, though that would go against the context of what the book was suggesting, because in this book it says that this was at a time of almost proto-humanity, where it depicts humanity as having as much akin to apes as it does to our current form. So that's how it depicts it. So that wouldn't mesh up. So I'm not going to go with the Dark Age. I'm going to go with the Dark Age of technology. Be that the case, if he was created during the Dark Age of technology, well, it would certainly open up a lot of possibilities as to what created him. Was it humanity? Was it something else entirely? Or was she simply spewing something without actually knowing the truth of it? I mean, she's quite specific, which gives me the impression that she knows something. Does he even breathe? Think about that. She demanded. "Tell me that, custodian. Have you ever heard him breathe? He is a relic left over from the Dark Age, a weapon left out of its box, now running rampant." Gives me the impression she knows something. How she found it out? Don't know. But yes, it gave me the distinct impression that what she's saying has quite a kernel of truth in it. And they're purposely vague. They don't actually give away anything here. It may be that they're going to leave the Emperor's origins purposely in the mists of time for, well, ever. Or sooner or later, they might give us enough clues to put it together for ourselves. Or they might eventually just come out outright and say it. And then we would have the choice of whether believing that as the truth or believing it as a lie of the character, if that's how they depict it. Or they could just straight up canon say it, where it's announced during a particular passage where we would know it then to be the truth. Which, during certain lines in certain novels, they do that. They state certain things which are canon from that point on. And we know that things that happen in the Horus Heresy are canon. So that is one thing to remember. Alright. So that is pretty much all in regards to the Emperor's origins. And as you can imagine, it's a bit staggering. Was he just a regular man who was just, born by regular parents? I distinctly think not. Was he a creation of the Dark Age of technology, created by humans and left to run rampant? Was he some other creation? Not sure. It's an interesting thought process all around, and one to be addressed. Alright, everyone, what do you think? Do you think that the Emperor is just a regular man who eventually ascended to become what he was being? Do you think he was some sort of creation of another race, possibly the Old Ones, as has been strongly theorized? Or possibly he himself, an Old One, who has, for one way or another, become what he is through some form? Or a creation of another race entirely? Or was he created during the Dark Age of technology by humans? That was one thing that she did seem to insinuate, that he was indeed a creation of humans. Or possibly something that was discovered by them. I mean, who knows? These are all different possibilities. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, please let me know why. And if you're new to the channel and genuinely enjoy this kind of content, please consider subscribing. In any case, don't get into too much trouble or do. It's always up to you. Toodles!